There is a proverb that says, familiarity breeds contempt. I'm sure you've heard that before. Familiarity breeds contempt. That means that the more time you spend with someone or with something, the more you lose respect for that person or for that thing. I'm sure that I got all your attention today because this is my first weekend with you, right? Probably after 6 months, nobody's going to listen to me like that. We know he will know what he's going to say, right? When I built my house in my hometown, I intentionally decided to create a space, a chapel, so that when I'm home, I can celebrate Mass. Because I like to celebrate Mass every day. And each time I will go home and my siblings are with me, the children are there, my house is always filled up with friends, with relatives, with my siblings. But I noticed that each time I would invite them in the morning to celebrate Mass, I see this huge reluctance. Sometimes some of them will choose to leave house early in the morning because they know that once he wakes up, the next thing is, let's celebrate Mass. So that got me thinking, is it because they know me when I was a child growing up, that even now that I'm a priest, they don't want to believe that I'm a priest? Because when I come home, I'm in the same house with them morning, afternoon, and night. They get so familiar with me that what I do as a priest means nothing to them. The danger of familiarity if it is not well managed. The gospel tells us that Jesus went to his native place, his hometown, where he was born, where he grew up, where everyone knew him. Everyone seemed to be familiar with him. And when on the Sabbath, he went into the synagogue and began to preach, proclaiming the word of God to them. The line that says they were astonished almost deceived me. Because when I read that, I thought that, maybe they were astonished because they were so impressed. They were so happy. They are ready to embrace him and accept what he was saying. The word of God that is being proclaimed to them. I thought that is why they were astonished. But guess what? I was wrong. Because of their familiarity with Jesus, because they know him, they know his parents, they know his relatives, because of that familiarity, instead of them to open their heart and their mind and receive the word of God that Christ is bringing to them, they pick offense at him. They pick offense at him. How many times, how often do we dismiss truth because we are familiar with the person telling us the truth? How many times that God is using someone to guide us, to direct us, to draw us close to him, but because that person is my classmate or we grew up or live in the same house, I don't care what you say. The danger of familiarity if it is not well managed. Jesus was amazed at the lack of their faith. What attitude do we bring when we come to Mass, when we come to celebrate the liturgy? In his graciousness, each time we gather to celebrate Mass, the Lord wants to feed us from the table of his words and the table of the Eucharist. Because I have been a priest for 8 years, and I have been celebrating Mass for 8 years, had that led me to always treat the Word of God as nothing when I'm here for Mass. Took it to be so casual, unimportant, something I can ignore and tune off. It is not meant for me. Instead of me to embrace that awe, that wonder, that mystery that comes with God speaking to his people in the context of the liturgy, I focus on the person who is proclaiming the word and miss out on the message of the day. Do we bring that awe, that wonder that the Word of God intrinsically possess? What is our attitude? What is our behavior? How do we embrace the message that is being proclaimed to us day by day from the sacred scriptures? You want to know how much most of us don't pay attention when the readings are read or the gospel are proclaimed? After this Mass, don't go far. Right after when you pass the door, put the person by your side and ask the person, what was the reading for today? Right? Here is a big one. I was in a parish, not the where I just left now, one parish I've been before, and the deacons usually are assigned to preach on the weekend. And this particular weekend, I had a deacon with me, and the deacon preached. The deacon preached. And then after Mass, somebody walked up to me. Oh, Father Francis, that is a great homily by you. I didn't preach. The deacon did. It tells you how much we are so distracted, so disconnected when we come to the presence of God, when everything we should be thinking about is God who called us, who gathered us. We didn't gather ourselves. And each time he gathered us, he has a message for us. He has something to tell us. He has something to communicate with us. Tell yourself the truth. If you lie, you go to confession. What was the message that God had for you last Sunday? Nothing. That would be a waste of time. In our first reading today, the God sent the prophet, and the prophet proclaimed, the Lord has sent me. Are you thinking of one prophet some thousands of years ago? What if the Lord is saying to you this morning, I am sending you? You are the prophet today that I am sending. Could that be the message you are bringing back to with yourself as you go home after this Mass? Or is it the words of consolation and comfort that St. Paul proclaimed to us? That no matter my weaknesses, no matter my struggles, no matter my frailties, the Lord is always there for me. What if that is the Lord is saying to you today? There is a lot going on in my life, and He summoned me to come before Him because He has a message of comfort and consolation for me. And you come with all those pains, and you are living with those pains without being consoled and comforted from the Word of God. Jesus was amazed at His people. Because the reverence that His words deserve, those who are listening to Him lost out. Writing to the Thessalonians, this is what St. Paul says. And for this reason, we to give thanks to God unceasingly, that in receiving the word of God from hearing us, you receive not a human word, but as it truly is, the word of God. The word of God. God continuing to speak to us. God continuing to reveal himself to us. In that page of sacred text, that moment demands our attention, our attentive listening, putting ourselves in that context and hear him say something to us. It's not a time to think of something else elsewhere. It's a time to give God all your full attention. Jesus, in the Gospel of John, says this: it is the Spirit that gives life, while the flesh is of no avail. The words that I have spoken to you are spirit and life. The words I have spoken to you are spirit and life. I will believe that you have the book of the Bible in your house. My dear brothers and sisters, each time you open that book of life, that is the word of God. Do not read it like a novel. Read it and know that in the pages of those sacred texts, God is saying something to you. Read it with attention, read it with reverence. Hear the voice of God speaking to you. Let Jesus not be amazed at lack of your faith or lack of my faith. Let Jesus know that his word that is being given to us is truly spirit and life, helping us, guiding us, nourishing us, drawing us close to him, and making us to become the best version of ourselves. Jesus could not do much miracles among them because of lack of their faith. If we don't read the word of God for what it is, if we allow things that doesn't matter to separate us, to blind us, to deafen us from hearing his words, we are the one losing, because he has a lot to offer us. His message, our spirit,